Based on everything that I say in my videos, some people think that I'm way too bullish. Some people think that I'm making outrageous claims that really don't make any sense. They think that Bitcoin is way too good to be true, and it's not possible for something like Bitcoin to exist where we have full control of our money. The money can't be stolen from us, it can't be debased. Nobody can create more of it out of thin air. It just seems way too good to be true. It seems like it can't be real. And in this video, I want to explain to you why it isn't. Let's get started. And just to prove to you that I get this comment regularly, I'm going to show you some of my comments. You can see here. This person said, "You speak with a lot of conviction. Is it 100% certain that what you say will come to pass? No one knows the future. I own a lot of Bitcoin, but it just seems too good to be true." I don't know if it's 100% certain. There are always things that you may not understand about the investments that you're making, and nothing is 100% guaranteed. But let's look at it from the flip side. If you think that Bitcoin can fail, then what are you going to hold? Are you going to hold dollars? Dollars are already failing. They're guaranteed to keep failing forever. Are you going to hold stocks? How do you know that the companies that you're investing in won't eventually stop being able to compete? What if there's disruptions that make your investment nearly worthless? What about real estate? What if there's some kind of natural event that makes it so that your property becomes worthless? It just gets damaged to a point where you can't rent it out, and let's say insurance doesn't pay you back. Nothing in this world is 100% guaranteed. Even if you were to step out of your house, you're not guaranteed to not get hit by a bus. So, the way that I see it, based on what I know, I do think Bitcoin is pretty much a guarantee to be around for the next 30, 50, 100, 200 years while humanity exists and while we use the internet or however Bitcoin is being used to be moved from one address to another. If we have some other way to store the Bitcoin blockchain, then maybe that's how things will proceed. But I think Bitcoin is going to be around for a very, very long time because no human can destroy it. We have to collectively agree, and nobody agrees on everything. I think Bitcoin is more positive than negative. So I think that there's always going to be people who are for Bitcoin. And if there are people who are for Bitcoin, then it can't be destroyed. And the next comment here is, "Hey Raj, what about the old saying? If it's too good to be true, it probably is. I'm a skeptic at heart. Even though everything points to a beautiful future, there's always a doubt in the back of my mind. I think the only way to fix that doubt is to keep understanding what Bitcoin is. If you spend the time learning how Bitcoin works, then there's no way that you're not going to get rid of that skepticism. You will always have skepticism about certain things. Even in my life, there are times when I'm not completely sure if Bitcoin will be around in 20, 30 years. But then I look at the fundamentals and I realize that Bitcoin is the only asset that has the characteristics that it has. So it will be around because nothing else can compete. For example, today we're using real estate as a store of value, but think about all of the pain that you have to go through to own real estate. You have to maintain it, you have to collect rent, you have to deal with people. I'm personally not interested in managing rental properties, so I never want to have to save using real estate. I would personally rather own Bitcoin because of its characteristics. This is a chart that shows you all of the characteristics that we need money to have. So we can see here, the US dollar has pretty much all of the characteristics that we need money to have, except it's not scarce. It can be printed out of thin air. The US dollar is the world reserve currency, but it's guaranteed to lose value over time. Why do people save in dollars? There's no reason to save in dollars. We've been brainwashed to believe that dollars are valuable. They have no real value. They can be printed. This is a terrible proposition for anybody who can't create new US dollars. If you can't create new US dollars, it means that somebody else is creating them for you and they are benefiting from whatever skills and labor you have. You have to basically pay them a tax in terms of inflation, and Bitcoin solves for this. Gold is pretty great as well as money. We've used gold for thousands of years, but gold is very difficult to move around. It's not portable enough, especially in the digital economy. It's also not divisible enough because the price of everything is going to continue to fall and fall and fall. At some point, we're going to be using gold dust to pay for the things that we need to pay for. So I don't really think that's a feasible way of living. Gold will eventually just become tokenized if we use it as money. And that's essentially what the US dollar is. The US dollar is pretty much what we used in the place of gold because gold wasn't portable enough. It wasn't divisible enough. It was scarce. And that was the characteristic that the US dollar didn't have. So we started using the US dollar that was supposed to be backed by gold, but eventually that backing was taken away and the US dollar just became something with an unlimited supply. Again, the thing with gold is that it's impossible to use in the digital economy. If you wanted to buy something from Amazon, you wouldn't be able to. A lot of people like to compare Bitcoin to tulip bulbs for some reason. They like to compare Bitcoin to trading cards. They like to compare Bitcoin to artwork. And all of these don't work as money because you can't really move them around very easily. The people who say that Bitcoin is the same as tulip bulbs really have no clue what they're talking about. The tulip bulb didn't even last 4 years. So I think that the people who compare Bitcoin to tulip bulbs have really done no research at all. The people who compare Bitcoin to trading cards are a little bit better, but again, it's one of the stupidest comparisons you can make. The issue is that number one, trading cards can be printed. The people who create those trading cards can have created more than they say are available. You don't know how many of them actually exist. You also can't pay for groceries with trading cards because not everybody has the same value for trading cards. A lot of the value for trading cards is subjective. Let's say a Wayne Gretzky rookie card. Somebody who's never watched hockey, who doesn't care about hockey, who doesn't even know the sport exists, who doesn't know who Wayne Gretzky is, they're not going to have any value for that card. While somebody who watches hockey, who's a diehard Wayne Gretzky fan, they may offer you a lot more money. So the value of trading cards is subjective. You have no idea what the value of a trading card will be day to day because, again, it's all based on supply and demand. Let's say it's revealed that Wayne Gretzky is some kind of criminal. Maybe his rookie cards won't be worth as much because people just don't want to buy them anymore. Artwork is another one of those really crazy ones because most people don't even have artwork and they can't possibly buy the kind of artwork that they're referring to. So, for example, a Picasso. A lot of people say that I'd rather have artwork over Bitcoin, but those people don't have the artwork that's valuable. They have prints of things that have really no value. You can't use artwork as money because the value, again, is subjective. I might think that a painting looks terrible while some other person may offer millions of dollars for it. The value of something that's used as money should be standardized, and that's partly why the US dollar is so painful to hold. People think that $1 will always be equivalent to $1, but that dollar's value keeps decreasing because more dollars can be printed at any time. On the other hand, we have something like gold, which has a standard value. 1 ounce of gold will always be equivalent to 1 ounce of gold because the material, the atoms that make up an ounce of gold are always going to be the same. You can't change them. You can't debase them. You can't create fake gold. You can try mixing other materials into a gold bar, but that's pretty easy to figure out because number one, the color changes. Number two, we have the technology to figure out the purity of gold today. So an ounce of gold from 5,000 years ago would be worth exactly the same as an ounce of gold today. You can melt it down, it can create the exact same thing. On the other hand, if you had a US dollar 200 years ago versus today, 200 years ago, it would have bought way more things. Let's say the fundamentals like food, you would have been able to buy a lot more things with 1,000 US dollars 100 years ago compared to today. Of course, today there's a lot more options, but the value of the dollar has decreased so much that you can buy fewer things with the dollars that you would have saved. With gold, you can buy more and more things over time. I guess people compare Bitcoin to artwork because the value goes up, but that really doesn't make any sense to me because it doesn't have any of these other characteristics. Real estate is also a terrible comparison because real estate has a lot of hidden costs and hidden pain that you wouldn't really realize unless you own a property. So you wouldn't realize how expensive maintenance is. You may not realize how expensive just dealing with realtors is and property taxes and dealing with banks. Real estate is also not fungible. Every property has its own characteristics. Every property is different. The value is very subjective. You also can't move around with your real estate because it's stuck in the ground. You can't move it around. You can't take it with you. You can't put it in your pocket. Real estate is also not very durable because if, let's say, there's a hailstorm, your property is going to be damaged and it's worth way less than what it was before the hailstorm. There's wear and tear involved with real estate when with Bitcoin there isn't. You also can't divide real estate while with Bitcoin you can divide one Bitcoin into 100 million units called Satoshis. So with real estate, you can't sell your house brick by brick, but with Bitcoin, you can sell it Satoshi by Satoshi. So if you need $300, you can get $300 by selling your Bitcoin at whatever the market price is. Real estate is kind of scarce, but you can build higher, you can build deeper into the ground. It'll become easier to build in the future as technology improves. We'll have better and better technology to build faster, to build cheaper. The cost of labor when it comes to building real estate will decrease as well. So I think that the supply will probably increase over time to fulfill demand because there's way too much profit to be made. Real estate really isn't decentralized because you have to rely on whatever your government's rules are. If they put a property tax on your property, you have to pay it. There's nothing that you can do. You can try to get away with not paying it, but you're probably going to get thrown in jail. There's a lot of control, there's a lot of red tape to developing new real estate. So it's really not decentralized. It's basically controlled by the government in the location that you're in. So you can see how many reds there are for real estate. And then you can see stocks. Stocks are probably way better than everything else other than dollars and gold. They're better than all of these other options. So tulip bulbs, trading cards, artwork, real estate, but not everybody has access to stocks. The value of stocks changes over time. There's a lot of risk associated with stocks, so you can't really use them as money. The value is going to fluctuate constantly. There's also the fact that 30 years ago, a company may be completely different from what it is today. So the value is different. The value that they're providing to the community is different. On the other hand, like I said, gold, an ounce of gold is exactly the same as what it was 5,000 years ago. So stocks you can't really use as money. You also can't move them around very easily because they have to be in a brokerage unless they get tokenized or something. Again, there are the other issues of the fact that most people don't even have access to stocks. Most people don't know how to value stocks. The value could be very subjective. Stocks are also not decentralized. They're in a specific jurisdiction, and if the government in that jurisdiction changes the rules, your stock could be affected massively. Another one that people compare Bitcoin to is Beanie Babies. I think this one's really stupid. I don't really think it makes any sense at all. It's a collectible that most people don't care about. Each one is different. You can't use Beanie Babies as money because they're not fungible. They're also not portable. Imagine having to pay for something again with Beanie Babies, just like gold. You'd have to go to Amazon's headquarters to pay them with your Beanie Babies, and then they're going to deliver whatever you bought from them. That makes no sense. They're physical, so you can't use them as money. Bitcoin is digital, and that's what makes it so valuable as money. There's also the fact that if a Beanie Baby is covered in dirt, it'll probably be worth a lot less than one that's not covered in dirt. So just that alone makes it so that Beanie Babies are not durable at all. And then the next comparison that I hear is luxury watches. Luxury watches are not all the same. Each unit is going to be different based on the characteristics, based on the condition. So the value will be different as well. They're also not portable because they're physical. You can't divide them. They're not durable. If you throw a luxury watch on the ground, it'll have a lot less value compared to if you had it brand new in its box. They are scarce though because the people who are creating them can limit the supply, but the issue is that you can't confirm if there's actually a limited supply. You don't know the exact amount of that watch that exists. And the next one, bonds. This is one of the biggest asset classes in the world. You can't really use bonds as money to trade. You need to exchange them for dollars before you trade. They have some of the characteristics of money, but they're not scarce. Again, this is a massive problem because if something's not scarce, it can be printed by somebody else. That leads to one group of people taking advantage of another group of people. And then at the end here, we have Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the only thing in the world that has all of the characteristics that we need money to have. The only thing that it's lacking on is its history. And that history is being built. It will be built over time. That trust will be built. The financial industry and banks are working as hard as they can to bring Bitcoin products to people. So over time, this moderate will go to high. So when you compare Bitcoin to everything else, it doesn't seem too good to be true. It has all of the characteristics that we need money to have. It combines all of the positives of gold with the positives of the US dollar, and it eliminates anything that's negative. Over time, as more people figure out that Bitcoin has all of the characteristics that we need money to have, they're not going to say that it's too good to be true anymore because it's true. It's the reality. It's there. I think we're just so used to getting screwed over by every financial product that we ever interact with. The value of stocks is always crashing. When you buy bonds, they can't buy the same things that they could before. When you save in dollars, of course, you know that those dollars lose value over time. When you have gold, you can't carry it around with you. If you go to the airport with too much gold and you don't declare it, you're going to get screwed over. Bitcoin does everything that we need money to do, and it's doing it better than everything that came before it. Bitcoin is better than gold. It's better than the dollar. It will be the world reserve currency. And what I'm saying here isn't too crazy. I'm not too bullish. It's the reality. Then we have this comment from something that a lot of people regularly say. It says, remember, if it seems too good to be true, it always is. It was created by the CIA. They hold 1 million coins, which they use to finance their black ops. A finite resource can never last as a definitive store of value for the masses in a continuously growing population. It inevitably ends up in the hands of the very few, the governments. Even gold supply increases each year, not by much, keeping it scarce, but it's not capped artificially at 21 million. This really great graphic from River shows you who holds the Bitcoin. You can see here that 14.56 million Bitcoin, which is almost 70% of the total supply, is held by individuals. There's a lot of Bitcoin that's lost and it won't be recovered. I'm assuming that it'll never be recovered. But then there's also Bitcoin that's held by businesses, funds and ETFs and governments. They don't hold as much Bitcoin as individuals. So I'm not sure how this person is coming to this conclusion that it'll end up in the hands of the very few. Bitcoin is mostly held by individuals. Of course, it's not distributed very widely yet, but keep in mind that most people have no idea what Bitcoin is. As people figure it out, they start buying, and the people who have a lot of Bitcoin redistribute what they have to other people. And one of the craziest things here is this person said they hold 1 million coins, which they use to finance their black ops. Again, I don't know how they would have done this because the Bitcoin has never moved. It's sitting in those wallets. This person is referring to these rumors that Satoshi Nakamoto stands for CIA or something along those lines, Central Intelligence. But if the CIA created Bitcoin, then I think they would be putting themselves in a terrible position because if Bitcoin catches on, then the US government can no longer print money and it can't fund the CIA. Why would the CIA settle for 5% of the money supply when it's basically got a blank check and more money can be printed out of thin air to fund their operations? This is one of the stupidest rumors that I've heard. Instead of using their time to build new skills, to create value, people are just wasting their time trying to figure out how the CIA is going to screw them over when the CIA has nothing to do with Bitcoin in the first place. I don't care what the name has to do with it, but think of this logically. The Bitcoin that the CIA has created has never moved from the wallets that it was put into initially. At the time when that Bitcoin was initially created, when Satoshi Nakamoto or apparently the CIA got a hold of it, it was worthless. It had no value. So if you think that the CIA created this money that they can't control, that everybody gets to take self custody of, that they can't censor, then you don't understand what the CIA is about. The CIA operates on information asymmetry. They don't operate on a public network. They don't want a public network because they don't want everybody to know what they're doing. If the CIA created Bitcoin and they had Bitcoin, they're basically putting themselves in the position where everybody can monitor their activity when it comes to money. The CIA would want money that can't be tracked because it would prevent anyone from figuring out how they're spending their money. And then finally, we have people who are leaving comments like this simply because they think if it seems too good to be true, it usually is, but this is not usually. This is somebody who actually understands Bitcoin. They understand how innovative Bitcoin is because it's not too good to be true. It's not like everything else. Nothing like this has ever existed in history. And then we have this next comment here. It is in many regards almost too good to be true because we're used to being beaten down. And this is so true. We're used to having our value stolen from us. We're used to having our cost of living constantly go up, even though it shouldn't. Do the research, try to figure out why Bitcoin is different from everything else. I tried to explain it from my own point of view here. I tried to show you the characteristics that Bitcoin has, the fact that its prices is going up, up, up. More and more people are accumulating it. All of that is extremely bullish. And all of that shows you that Bitcoin really isn't too good to be true. It's reality. It's happening. It's being adopted right in front of us. If you own Bitcoin over the next 10, 20, 30 years, I think you're going to do very well with your finances. But if you don't own Bitcoin, I think you're going to beat yourself up forever. Don't make the decision to ignore Bitcoin just because you don't have the time to research it. I know you have the time to study it. Give something up if you have to. Don't watch Netflix for a couple of nights a week, or find something that you can get rid of that gives you the time to listen to a couple of Bitcoin podcasts or to read a Bitcoin book. Of course, this only applies to the people who maybe have been sent this video from their friend or family and they haven't adopted Bitcoin yet. Your friend or family, whoever sent this video to you, wants the best for you. And that's why they sent you this video. It's because they care about you. They know that everything is going up in price in terms of dollars, and it'll continue to go up in price literally forever. But if you save in Bitcoin, your cost of living is decreasing by 50% every couple of years. Once Bitcoin does hit $1 million, think about how many more people are going to be interested in it and how much more expensive it'll eventually get. So, no, Bitcoin is not too good to be true. It's already true. It's already there. It's already out there for you to solve your financial problems with. If you think that Bitcoin is too good to be true and it's holding you back from buying some, I think you're making the biggest financial mistake of your entire life.